Without infrastructure, forget development.
The president has believed in us, the young people, gives us the right environment, just the right chemistry for us to be able to perform.
And today we are proud to say the sky is the limit and we shall prevail.
With such vigor, Jammeh leads the Gambia's onward journey towards greater progress and development.
Good evening and welcome to the news in the headlines tonight. President Jammeh receives in audience the visiting commander of the U.S. Africa, General Carter Ham. Military personnel from 40 African countries conclude a joint exercise in Banjul where they have been testing security communication equipment to ensure their compatibility. Police in Guinea round up key opposition figures in a backlash following an attempt on the life of President Alpha Condé by unidentified assailants. And Libyan rebels say they are now counting down to the day Gaddafi will fall, as a delegation from Misrata visit Paris to garner more support from the Sarkozy government. These stories and much more coming ahead in the news. I am Maisatumane. President Jammeh has received at State House the commander of the U.S. Africa Command, General Carter Ham, who was at State House to brief the Gambian leader on the successful conduct of the Africa Endeavour exercise, a joint communication operation testing the compatibility of security equipment of various African countries. General Ham spoke to reporters after meeting President Jammeh.
General, you have just completed a 10-day exercise in the Gambia. But first of all, before you dilate on that, I want you also to brief us on your meeting with the president and what has the exercise got to provide the continent's military in terms of communication.
Well, first, our meeting with the president was an opportunity for me to report to him, along with the chief of the defense staff, that the exercise has successfully concluded and that we have achieved all of the objectives that were intended. The main purpose of the exercise was to practice communications among a number of different countries around the African Union economic communities and all the way back to the African Union headquarters in Ethiopia. So in that regard, it was a very successful exercise. The President talked about the necessity for increasing the level of training that the African nations do together so that when they are called upon to participate in a regional operation, whether that's a peacekeeping or a humanitarian assistance mission, that the armed forces of the various nations are more practiced and more accomplished and prepared to operate together.
How significant was it that it was being held in the Gambia? Why the Gambia in the first place?
Well, the Gambia offered to host the exercise here, and frankly, they made that offer on short notice. There had been other plans that to conduct the exercise somewhere else, and that became impractical. And the Gambia offered to conduct the exercise here, and it proved to be a very, very successful and supportive relationship. We were scheduled earlier this afternoon to visit with the National Assembly, but our schedule and the opportunity to meet with the President has unfortunately precluded that, and I look forward to meeting with the National Assembly on our next visit.
The Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs, Her Excellency Dr. Aissatou Seydi, Wednesday presided over the quarterly meeting of institutions under her purview. The forum reviewed the gains made by the various agencies as well as the challenges they have been faced with during the course of the last 3 months. Aissatou Bajansar reports.
The Office of the Vice President attracted the participation of the Women's Bureau, Population, National Nutrition Agency, and the National Disaster Management Agency. The interface, according to officials, is done quarterly to take stock of the achievements made by the various sectors as well as challenges impeding their work with a view to charting a way forward. In an interview with Grts, the director of the National Nutrition Agency said his agency has been engaged in various projects, including the integration of nutrition syllabus into the primary school curriculum, which the director of NANA said has already kicked off with high optimism.
Another thing that I reported on during the meeting was the progress we are making with the Gambia Rapid Response Nutrition Improvement Project. If you can recall, a couple of months ago, the Gambia government was given a grant of $3 million United States dollars. This is in the wake of the high food prices and the fuel prices. So we benefited with this $3 million from the World Bank, and we have already started doing some work with regard to that area. Apart from making sure that we hire all the project staff that are necessary for the implementation of this particular grant, we also started doing some studies, writing some manuals and things like that.
Kajali Sanko is the Assistant Director Research at the Women's Bureau. He also shed light on some of the key issues currently being propelled at the Bureau.
We were able to look at issues that relates to capacity building, issues that relates to the activities towards the construction of the multipurpose market complex, which is a very important program for the National Women's Federation. And we've also looked at other policy matters because we've already developed a national policy for the advancement, a national gender and women's empowerment policy, which is already validated, and we've discussed the way forward towards the process of enacting that policy.
For Paul T. Mendy of Population Affairs, the meeting comes at a time when his sector is working on preparations for the demographic health survey and the 2013 population and housing census.
As the most important issue now is the conduct of the DHSS, that's demographic and health surveys, and preparations for the forthcoming census, which is 2013 population and housing census. There are very key issues that we are more focusing on in raising funds so that at least we'll be able to conduct a successful DHS and 2013 census.
Officials are hopeful that from the meeting with the Vice President and Minister for Women's Affairs, these sectors will be better poised to tackle challenges that pose a stumbling block to the rapid and fruitful execution of their ongoing projects. Aissatou Badiansar, GRTS.
Meanwhile, Vice President Jai Seydi has commended the Mauritanian community in the Gambia for being law-abiding. This as she took delivery of a check for $100,000 from a renowned Mauritanian businessman, Ahmed Miali, who also pledged campaign materials for the APRC. Mohamed Jamal Sise reports the Vice President also presided over the closing of the Africa Endeavour Communication Text exercise hosted by Banjul.
Ahmed Al-Mili owns the famous El Hela business outfit in the Gambia. After observing the many strides of the President in terms of personal support to girls, women, children and farmers, Dr. Njoguba, the Works, Construction and Infrastructure Minister, says the Mauritanian businessman feels obliged to take a slice out of his profits for the President as a show of appreciation. Ahmed Al-Mili feels the President's generosity stretches beyond the Gambians. Exemplary treatment accorded to non-Gambians doing one productive thing or the other in the country is just overwhelming. He is convinced beyond shadows of doubt that a marked difference does exist between Gambia before '94 and Gambia today. The reciprocatory stance of President Jammeh on the usefulness of the Mauritanian community to the economy of the Gambia is obvious, as stated by Vice President Jai Seydi. Whilst thanking Ahmed Mili for his donation of $100,000 to the President and a pledge of campaign materials to the APRC, the Vice President also recognizes the law-abiding nature of the Mauritanian community, emphasizing the close blood bonds between the two peoples. From her office at State House, Dr. Jai Seydi was also at the July 22nd Square to preside over the closing of an 11-day military training in communication techniques. The exercise, the largest such with a record multilateral efforts to it, is said to be very necessary in tackling varieties of peace-threatening activities, natural and human disasters as well.
For this reason, I was very pleased to see the participation of both the Economic Community of West African States